Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and welcome to a special edition of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I'm here today to talk to you about Fresh Off the Boat Season 1, Episode 13, So Chinese. And that's how I'm gonna say it, because I'm not gonna say it the way it's spelt in the show, because I'm pretty sure it's offensive. and And the way I'm gonna spell it for this video is just a traditional Chinese like word. I'm not gonna spell it the way that they spelled it in the show, because like I said before, I'm pretty sure that's offensive and stuff. And so this was a show that came out in 2015 and it lasted for 6 seasons and ended in 2020. And this show was extremely funny. Like, I love this show, but I love the first season more than any other season. I love the first season a little bit more because the actual person who wrote the book, was the narrator and stuff. I like the stories that they told in season one a bit better. In season two, everything started to change. See, what got me into this show is that I saw the trailer for it, and it's basically this little Asian dude. He's like a little Asian kid, and he's all about like hip hop and ghetto lifestyle. Like, that's interesting. I remember back in like middle school, I've said this before, when I was in middle school, in my town there aren't that many Asian people, and the most ones that are here are like Filipino. But then if you go to like the university, then there's a lot of Japanese students there. And so for the most part, like in middle school, this one girl I knew and this other girl, they went through this kind of like goth ghetto phase where they were acting like all hard and tough and gangsterous and stuff. And like they grew out of that once they got into high school and stuff. But then I remember in college there was this one Asian girl, and she was ghetto and mean. Like, it was hard trying to talk to her and everything. So I thought the premise of that was like really interesting. By season two, it started to die down a little bit to where he wasn't as ghetto as he was before. But then towards the end of the series run, he started acting a little bit more like ghetto and stuff. Now, at that time of watching this show, I had no idea this was based off of loosely based off of the life of the real Eddie Wong and stuff. And because I just never knew it until I looked it online. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And so, but then he left at the end of season one because he didn't like the depiction of the show, and he didn't like how it really didn't portray his lifestyle and everything, which I will get to later on in this video and stuff, because it's really fascinating how much the show changed to fit the all-American sitcom format and everything. And so this show is very significant because this was the second, I believe it's the second or somewhat third, but mostly second predominantly Asian television series. The first one was All American Girl that happened about 20 years before that, I believe, in the 90s. And that only lasted for one season. I remember I watched All American Girl, but to be completely honest with you, I don't remember nothing about that show. I forgot everything about that show. And it's funny because it get referenced in this show at one point. And what's even crazier is that Hudson Yang, who plays Eddie in the show, it's crazy. His father is the one who helped get All American Girl canceled back in the day. That's insane. Like, that's insane. I think he had like a blog or like he was a reviewer or something like that. And he helped get the show canceled. And then crazy enough, he helped his son get on this show. Oh, it's nuts. But it's crazy because he also resembles the real life Eddie and stuff. And so like Asian representation solely lacks in America. I've talked about that before in some of my other videos. You'll be hard pressed to even find like an Asian star like being the main character in the show back in like the 80s, 90s, 60s, 70s, no matter what decade you're in. And times have changed a lot, but they're slowly changing and stuff. And so, like, most people, like Kelly Hu said that, 1 in 4 Americans can't even name an Asian American star. They have to name somebody from like another country. And most people always say like Jackie Chan. And Jackie Chan, of course, was never born in America and stuff. And it's the honest to God truth. It's like it really, really, really like Asian representation lacks hugely and stuff. And so like when this show came out, this was during a period in time in ABC when they were trying to be more diverse. And they had a plethora of like shows that was very diverse at that time. They had American Housewife that had like the mother, the lead star of the show was a lot bigger. Most moms are skinny on like the show. They had Blackish, which was a predominantly black show that showed like the life of an upper class black family. Speechless, a show about a teenage boy who I'm not sure what his condition is, but he's paraplegic and on a wheelchair and he's unable to speak. And let's see what else they had. They had Imaginary Mary, I believe it was called. I never watched that, but she hallucinated a small little stuffed animal that could move around and talk. So most likely she had mental illness and stuff. That show crashed and bombed. It only lasted for 1 season. There is The Goldbergs. That's loosely based off of the main star, and it's about a Jewish family. Then I think it's called The Fergusons, I believe it was. And that show is about like a teenage boy who's gay living in, living in America and stuff. And then there was Dr. Ken, which, came after this show, after Kim Ju-on gets started on this show, and it's about his life as a real life doctor. Even though he's a comedian actor, he has a medical degree and everything. And he used to be a doctor. And of course, like there's this show. And all them shows at some point in time got canceled. The only ones to survive was this show, Blackish, and American Housewife. American Housewife, it like said farewell after 5 seasons. Mainly due because one of the main stars left and there was some controversy going on behind the series and stuff with the creators. And so when your creators are screwing up, then the show ain't gonna last. Then there's Blackish that lasted for 8 seasons. And then there's this one that lasted for 6. And the only reason why this show get canceled, which I will get to later on in the video, is still pretty funny. Because I remember I read that tweet. And so like I said before, this is loosely based off the real life Eddie and stuff, and his life growing up as a kid in America from a Chinese family. Which is funny because the lead actor who plays the father isn't even Chinese or nothing. And there was some controversy about that, but the real life Eddie, gave the dude his blessing and wanted him to be on the show and stuff like that. And so that was Randall Park, and he plays Lewis. And Constant Wu, she plays Jessica, constant woo boy. I tell you, she was my favorite on the show playing Jessica. I love Jessica. And let me tell you, she is hilarious, especially in this episode. She wears the pants and that family and stuff. And so, like, there's Forrest Willer who plays Emery, and then there is Lucille Song, who plays the grandmother. Actually, going into this show, only the grandmother I actually knew of. I knew of Randall Park because of one movie he did, but I've never seen him in nothing. But the grandmother, I've seen her in a couple of stuff. Vanishing Son, which I'll be talking about one day later on. What is the Desperate Housewives and something else, but I can't remember what that other thing is. But in Desperate Housewives, which one day I will talk about soon, I could not believe the character she played. She only played in about 6 episodes. She was a recurring character, and she was a maid. And that is literally it. Asian representation was lacking in Desperate Housewives. They only had 2 Asian stars. And I'll get into that whenever I do my Asian representation video soon and stuff, because that show, it did them dirty. It did them dirty and stuff. But then what do you expect when, like, the creator kept putting Mexican music every time the Mexican stars would show up, and they hated that, and they let him know that too. And the youngest dude, Ian Chan, he plays Edmund. And you can see him in both the Shazam movies. And so, like, in this episode, what it's about, it's about losing one's culture, one's heritage, because you're getting integrated into another society. See, in this episode, their family, I forget where they came from. The parents came from China, and the kids were born in America, but they came from, I think, California, and then moved to Florida. And so, like, in Florida, their dad started a restaurant. And I'm pretty sure in real life, yes, that's actually what happened. Now, as to how exactly he started it, that's debatable, because I don't know if it's true, because like I said, this is loosely based off of their real lives and stuff. And on the show, basically what it was is that the father, they was looking to expand these branch of restaurants. And so he took the money, he took the name of the restaurant, he changed the name, but had everything looking the same. And then he started his own restaurant. Basically, he stole their idea and he stole the money. And then in the show, they later found out. I don't know if that's how it started. And I always wonder if Cattleman Ranch is a real place. I kept looking online, and I think one time I actually found it online. And so, like, basically, the creator of the show, who is based off of, he left, like I said, after the first season, because, like, after the first episode, they pretty much just, the studio ABC just went in their own direction, and it really wasn't based off of his books no more. And they was doing the typical sitcom format, the cookie cutter type, to appeal to like an American audience, but mostly a white American audience. And he hated that. And he hated the stuff he had to say, especially in the pilot. And like I said, I'll get to that later on in the video. So that's why I don't know if, like, the way the father created the restaurant was the same in the show, And so, like, their mom is very strict about, like, their Asian culture and this and that, and wanting them to be good children, and very smart in school and stuff like that. But she's even found herself in assimilating into that of American lifestyle, mostly that of white American lifestyle, while Eddie is assimilating into black culture and stuff. And so the mom, she does everything from watching Melrose Place to talking to the women in the neighborhood, and wanting to join a country club. And it's because they live in an all white neighborhood and they were the only Asian family that lived there. And there aren't that many that lived in Florida where they're at. And so people started treating them differently and disrespecting them at times, especially Eddie in like the pilot episode when he brought his lunch to school that his mom made, traditional Chinese food, and the other kids at school kept making fun of him, saying it smelled funny. And so this was a big problem for him, and he could not fit in, you know what I'm saying? And then at one time there was like a black kid who called him an Asian slur, which I've never heard that phrase until this show. And they actually allowed him to use the word on the show. And so he kept calling Eddie that, and then Eddie called him the N-word off screen. They got into a fight, and then, the parents came in and this and that. And so on the show, both him and the black kid bonded over a Beastie Boy song and going to the concert. Where in real life, the real Eddie, I believe, said it was Outkast. But they wanted him to say this line, an Asian kid and a black kid bonding over a Jewish rapper. Isn't America great? And he did not want to say that at all because one, it wasn't even the Beastie Boys, and two, he was not going to say that last phrase. And but instead they compromised and they changed the last part. So instead of "Isn't America great," it was something else. I forget what it was, but he hated doing that and saying that because they wanted to appeal to a white audience and everything. And that's how like the format of the show constantly kept happening. It was basically sitcom hijinks and stuff. And I get that it's a sitcom, you know what I'm saying? You're not really gonna base it solely off the real life story, especially when his life wasn't as peachy keen as they put it in the show, especially when it came to his father and everything, which I will get to at the end of this video for a specific reason. And so he said, he understood where that black kid was coming from because he saw that black kid get picked on every day by the white kids. So in order for the black kid to get picked on less, he had to pick on the new kid who happened to be Asian and stuff. A sad, sad truth that what happens in schools and stuff. I remember there was this one dude, I think he was Jewish, and people picked on him all the time. And they would call him like gay and all this other stuff. Don't know if he was or not, but they really picked on that boy bad. And nobody stopped it. I didn't stop it because I didn't want to get picked on, you know what I'm saying? And that's how kids are in school. Well, that boy who got picked on every day at school, in high school, he finally had enough and brought I think he brought like a hit list to school, and somebody found it, turned him in, and that's the last we ever saw of that boy. And I think I looked him up online just to see like what happened to him, And I think he's married now and has a kid or something like that. So thankfully he didn't go down like a dark path, but kids can be cruel, you know what I'm saying? And so where was I at before I went into that story? And so the mom, she wants to join like a country club and everything. Basically, country clubs are for rich people, but because majority of them are white, it's mostly like white people who join them. A sprinkling of people of color here and there, but they're predominantly white. And you get into a country club, boy, you're set for life. They help your kids get into good universities. They help expand your business if you have a business. They help you get started up. They put the word out for you. It's basically like being in a fraternity or a sorority. And, she really wants to be a part of that, but the husband does not. And so they have dinner with their neighbors and stuff. And they're trying to convince him to want to join. Excuse me. And it works, you know what I'm saying? The dad is sold. The mom now, however, Jessica has a different idea. See, something happened. I forget what happened, but oh no, I remember. So the family that lives next to them said, sometimes I forget you're Asian. You just fit right on in. And the mom started to think about that. As she got through cooking macaroni and cheese with bacon bits in it. And she was shocked and surprised to see that she cooked macaroni and cheese. She doesn't cook American food, she only cooks Chinese food. And it's there she drops, like, the container of food in the baking dish. And because she had an epiphany and a revelation and everything. And so the next day, she started dressing like in Asian clothes and everything and putting her hair in the Asian style, which Eddie thought she was trying to dress as that woman from Mortal Kombat, which she looks like a little bit, but of course that's based off an Asian character, so And so now she's completely in strict, like heritage mode and everything. She's letting the kids know that, look, we ain't assimilating no more. We're gonna stay who we are and everything. And so she starts cooking food in like one of those bamboo bowls and stuff. I've always wanted to cook in one of those and always wanted to eat food out of that. Like, how does it taste? You know what I'm saying? I saw Yan, he cooked in one of those. I'm just like, man, I wonder how stuff tastes. And so, like, she's making them go, like, back to CLC again. And I never knew what CLC was. And this show was literally, taught me what it is. This show might done the cookie cutter like white sitcom format, but this was really educational to people who do not know anything about like Chinese culture and stuff. And basically it's the Chinese Learning Center. And it's where like after you go to regular school, you go there and you learn a whole lot more. And everything's in Chinese and they only speak in Mandarin and stuff like that. And the boys do not want to go there and they don't want to be there. Why? Because the boys don't speak Chinese and stuff. In fact, Edmund only says the cuss words in Mandarin and stuff. And so, like, then she sees, like, Eddie at one point dressing with black dreadlocks and has a Jamaican hat on. Why? Because at school, they're supposed to do, like, talk about, like, a culture of one country. He wanted Jamaica, so he got Jamaica because, Eddie in the show is all about he's all about like black culture and stuff. And he bribed this one dude, tricked him, I should say, to get Jamaica. Basically, he had him call his grandma, and the grandma pretended to be Topanga from Boy Meets World and stuff. And so when the mom sees him talking in Jamaican accent with the dreadlocks and the hat, she is not having it. And she no longer wants to be a part of the country club. And so at one point in time, the boys come home because the thing about Edmund and Emery, they're really smart and they compete with one another. And their mom really isn't paying attention to their education to the point which is getting on their nerves. And so she isn't even putting stuff on like the refrigerator no more. And they get good grades and they're doing like paintings and all this other stuff. And so like she brings in chicken feet. And the boys do not want to eat it. And she talks about how, like in Asian culture, we don't throw nothing to waste. We use the entire part of like the chicken, which is what I heard Martin Yang said one time. Martin Yan, I think his name is. It's been a while. I haven't seen his show in a long time. What happened to it on PBS Create? It like disappeared. And I miss watching that dude's show. That dude's awesome and everything. But he just like disappeared. And so like, I don't know what happened to Martin Yan. And so like, they refuse to eat it. And I would too. I don't do feet. I don't eat pig's feet. I don't eat chitlins. I don't know what a hall mall is, but I ain't eating that. And I ain't eating no like whole chicken. We eat like the beak and everything, like a teeny tiny one. Cause there's like a dish where you swallow the entire chicken. I don't do that. And I ain't eating no chicken feet. I eat chicken breast, and that is it. And stuff. I'm not like the rest of my family and stuff, man. I'm like probably the only black person who doesn't eat chitlins and guts and all this other stuff. I don't do that. But the father and everything, he's all like, we're not losing our heritage and all this other stuff. And, he's having a great time at the country club, which she forbids and everything. So she goes to the dude's school and makes him get China instead of Jamaica. Well, he doesn't want to do it. And the only thing he has is like a flag and some soy sauce. Needless to say, he fails the assignment. And at one point in time, she's trying to like explain why China is so great by talking about the Great Wall of China and like a whole bunch of other stuff. And she gets really mad at her boys. And I understand why she's getting mad because it's kind of like when people do come to other countries, they really do assimilate into their culture. And a lot of them do forget where they came from and their heritage. Most people who are born, most like Latino people and Asian people and like Italian people who are born in America, a lot of them don't speak their native tongue and everything because their parents don't teach it because, they're so integrated into this new culture. And I feel like, when you do go to like other countries, you should adapt, but don't fully assimilate, you know what I'm saying? Like, never forget who you are, never lose your accent. Like, Sofia Vergara, that's one thing I love about her. She will not give up her accent for no reason. Even if the script calls for it, she won't do it. And Salma Hayek is another. I remember there's this one Asian actor, I forget his name, but I'll talk about him when I do the Asian, like, representation video and stuff. He went to an audition and he saw a bunch of dudes that he's seen before, because it's slim pickings in America when they want like a certain person of a certain race because they always normally go with the same people and stuff, right? And so this is one thing that bugs folks because they all like, well, if this person is Chinese, why did you hire a Japanese star for like this role and stuff? And so that's something Hollywood really needs to work on and stuff. So he's at the audition and one of the people at the audition looked really upset and he asked like, why are you upset? And he's all like, they wanted me to talk with a fake accent. And he's like, oh heck no, I'm out. And he left. He drove back, I think like 50 or 500 miles back home. And he was not going to do that because he said in the email, there was nothing in the audition that said you have to have a fake Asian accent. And he doesn't want to portray that type of person, especially when it's not like a period piece. And he talks about it in the op-ed in NBC. And like I said before, I'll talk about this in another video. And that really frustrated him. And I've heard this so many times from like other celebrities of like different colors that they said, they always want them to have like the fake accent and they don't want to do it because they don't have that accent. And, I understand if it's like a period piece, then it makes sense to have the accent. Or like if you're playing, like say, take Constant Wu. Blew my mind when I found out that's not her real voice on the show. I really thought it was, because like I said before, I didn't know nobody going into this show except for Randall and also the grandmother. And so I never knew what she sounded like until I saw like an interview with her. I was beyond shocked. And I understand why she spoke with that accent because Eddie's mom, in real life, came from China and she had an accent. And so it would make sense for, the context of like the show, you know what I'm saying? But ever since then, this show, she spoke with like her real accent and other stuff. And, it is quite a shame that a lot of people lose, like, their heritage. Lelaine from Lizzie McGuire, she's Filipino, but she's like, the Hispanic Filipino. And she can't even speak Spanish, she said. And I think Demi Lovato is the same exact way. And, so I understand why the mom is like, not wanting them to forget who they are. Well, she has a discussion with, like, her husband, and she was waiting for him to get back because he snuck to the country club, and she was pissed. But then he realized something. It's the same time her show, Melrose Place, comes on, and he realized that she snuck and watched it. And she confessed, like she can't live without Melrose Place. She likes macaroni and cheese because it's so simple to make. You just pour water in like the instant box stuff and everything. And he tells her straight up, it's just like, you're not gonna forget, like, who you are, because it's always gonna be a part of you. And it's okay to like experience other cultures, and especially when you live in like in their country and stuff like that. And it really is. I mean, as long as you don't get some racist person talking about this is America and you only speak English and stuff like that. And whenever they just hear you randomly talking it like to your friends and stuff, and not to them, like I can't stand people like that. Like I remember one time I was in a Chinese buffet, and I was getting ready to leave soon, and as I'm eating, I could overhear the other table talking, and it was like a white family. And I was so disgusted because they're eating these people's food, and they're trashing Asian culture as they're eating. I'm all like, how you gonna do that? How you gonna go to an Asian buffet, eat their food, and then trash their culture as you're eating? That's so disrespectful and everything. And also, speaking of integrating into America, I want some real Chinese food. I really do. Because I heard that the Chinese buffets, that's not real Chinese food. It's Americanized. I'm just like, oh man, it tastes good. But I want some traditional, like real kind, which I've heard from this one YouTuber. He said that like when you like most of the time, like Asian people who go like, well, I'll just say Chinese people instead of like the whole country. I'm talking about Chinese food right now. He said like Chinese people who come from like China and everything, when they come to America, he said they will literally go the distance, no matter what city they living in, to find an authentic, real Chinese restaurant and stuff. Because he said that's what his family did and stuff. And they drove many miles until they could find a real one. I don't know if that's like true or not, but since he's Asian and, he said it, I'm just going to take his word for it. You know what I'm saying? And so when Jessica was at like, the presentation for like the awards and everything, not an award, but the presentation for like their projects and everything, Eddie was talking to his friends. And of course, here they are dissing China again. And that pissed off Eddie to where he berated them in front of everybody, talking about how great China is and how, China has this and China has that. And it made his mom proud. So proud that he actually got an F on his assignment. Why? Because when he got back to doing the Jamaican project, he didn't have time to like research it, right? And so like because he didn't have time to research it, he got an F. And she was so happy because he stood up for his country, she put his F on like the refrigerator, which pissed off his brothers. Now that would have never happened to the real Eddie Wong and everything. And it's because like his father was super strict. In his book that Eddie wrote, he's talked about how like his dad wanted perfection. And if he didn't get that, he would hit Eddie and stuff and his brothers. His dad was very abusive and everything about how he spanked his kids. Eddie literally said that if he came home with a B, he would get the backhand and the front hand of his father across the face. And when asked about this, his father, he defended it. He said it's a different culture. That's the only thing his father said. His father's all like, it's a different culture. It's our culture. This is what we do. We strive for our kids, to have a good education. And, we discipline them and stuff like that. And I'm not for hitting nobody in the face. I don't believe in that kind of discipline. I also don't believe in spanking because I got spanked growing up and I'll never spank nobody. I'll smack them in the back of the head, like Will Smith when he was on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but that's about it. Now, I will shout. I will shout and I will ground and I will put in timeout. But spanking, I don't do. And honestly, I don't think it's really a cultural thing. I think it's just an old-fashioned thing because every race spanks their kids and stuff. Now, I've never seen one actually smack them in the face really, really hard as Eddie explained and everything, which would now explain something I saw in anime. Ronin Warriors, Sailor Moon, and Digimon. All of those have older kids slap a little tiny kid in the face. But because it was the English dub, you never really saw that. And I always confused. I didn't know what exactly was going on. Like they would get mad at each other and the older kid will raise their hand up and then all of a sudden it will cut to like another part of the screen and then the kid face will be like red and be holding their face. I'm like, wait, what the heck just happened? But then when Sailor Moon got the unedited version, the new unedited English dub version, they actually showed the slap and everything. So I'm like, oh, so that's what happened. And I've always been curious about that, especially hearing about Eddie's father and stuff. And like, as for the show getting canceled, because I said it lasted for 6 seasons. When they got renewed for 6 seasons, Constant Wu cussed as loud as she could on Twitter, getting pissed that the show got renewed. And at the time, everybody laughed because that was funny. Because, like, how can you have a show, it got renewed, but you're pissed? And so she explained it's because she wants to try other projects. She's been here for 6 years doing this show, and she wants to, dip her toes into other stuff. And the sad, tragic part of that is she kind of disappeared for a while. Like, I remember I never heard from her, like in TV wise or movie wise, and she wasn't really tweeting anything. And so she just went distant to all her fans. So like, now when I say I haven't heard from her, I didn't mean like me and her talk. I mean like she didn't post like nothing for a good while. And then she popped up in like a movie, and then another movie, and now a TV show on Amazon. And she wrote a book, and it explained where she went. The sad, tragic truth of the matter is that she tried to take her own life. Why? Because after that faux pas of her show getting renewed and her getting upset, somebody in the Asian community, an Asian celebrity, she will not say who and she won't say the gender, basically berated her and talking about how, like, don't you understand what a great honor this is to have like an Asian show on television where you're not like a martial artist or you're not like a doctor and it's not some type of like Hong Kong fantasy and this and that, and like other like Asian stars will kill at the chance to have this, and here you is just like getting upset about it and stuff. And that really upset her because whoever this star was a really famous star and she must have really looked up to them. And so it rattled in her head to the point where she tried to take her own life. But thankfully, somebody found her and got her to the hospital and got her the help that she needed. And I hope she never goes down that dark path again because she's one of my favorite actresses now, and I never want to see nothing bad happen to her. And you know what I'm saying? And I really wish she would expose this celebrity because that was just messed up. Like, I get what that celebrity was talking about because Martin Luther King did the same, well, did a similar thing. Not exactly, but a similar thing to Nichelle Nichols, who sadly is no longer with us. When she was in Star Trek, she tried to leave, and he told her, you being on TV is going to inspire more black people to want to be like a celebrity, want to be an actor, actress, and wanting to better themselves because, it was really segregated back then in like the 60s and stuff. And this celebrity that really upset Constance, I wish they would have spoken to her better instead of the way they did. I'm afraid it might be who I assume it might be, but I hope to God it's not that one star You know what I'm saying? But it had to have been somebody huge, like internationally huge. And there's only a few that I can think of, and there's only one I can specifically think of. I hope to God it's not that star. But you can catch this show on like Hulu is available. I don't know if it's on Disney Plus or not, but I know it's on Hulu. Happy Asian and Pacific Islander month, everybody. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.